Equations are considered equivalent equations if they have the same solution. Multiplying or dividing the same number to each side of an equation produces an equivalent equation. You will use inverse operations to solve these problems. Inverse means opposite. So the opposite of multiplying is to divide. So when we come across equations that have multiplication, we'll use division. The opposite of dividing is multiplying. So when we come across the equations that involve dividing, originally with the variable, we will multiply. Okay, so here's some examples of numbers that we'll be working with. So here's an example of an equation that involves multiplication. So we have negative 20 equals negative 4 times y. Now, students who like to work left to right can rearrange this equation. So if they would like to rewrite it, you could rewrite it to look like this. Negative 4y equals negative 20. Okay. As we work through this, we have to remember that we're not necessarily doing the opposite of the number, but the opposite of the operation. So we're trying to get 4 away from y here. So in order to do that, and it's not 4, it was negative 4. In order to do that, right now it's negative 4 times y. So we're going to do the opposite to remove it away from that. So we're going to go ahead and divide by negative 4. Okay, whatever we do to one side, we have to do to the other. So divide by negative 4. Now we have y equals negative 20 divided by negative 4. So two negatives make a positive, and 20 divided by 4 equals 5. So here we've just found out that y equals 5. If we substitute 5 in place of y, negative 4 times 5 does give us negative 20. So we solved this one correctly. Okay, so we're going to practice a couple more of those. Okay, so here's another one. We have 18 equals negative 4y. Okay, you're not always going to get whole number answers. So in this case, just to give you a heads up, we will not get a whole number answer. So we're going to work to either change it to a decimal or change it to a mixed number. So right now I have negative 4 times y. So to get rid of that negative 4 away from the y, I'm going to divide by negative 4. Now I'm left with y on this side, but whatever I do on one side, I have to do on the other side of the equal sign. So divide by negative 4. I just found out that y equals 18 divided by negative 4. So there's two ways that we could give a final answer on this. We could reduce our fraction and leave it as a mixed, or leave it as an improper fraction, while 2 would go into each of these numbers. So it would become negative 9 over 2. We could change it to a mixed number. So let's see, 2 would go into 9 4 times, which puts me at 8. I have 1 left over, 2. We could also use our calculator to change it into its decimal form. So if I wanted to use the calculator, I would just punch in 18 divided by 4, which gives me 4.5. So I have to remember to put my negative in there. So y equals 4.5, and there was 1 negative, so it's a negative 4.5. So it depends on what the expectation is for the answer. For now, I'd kind of like you to work on practicing changing to a mixed number. So I would like you to work here. If you're not asked to give a certain answer, then you can kind of decide which one you would prefer to do. Sometimes you have some equations that look kind of different. So like here I have a negative a equals negative 21. What you need to realize is anytime you have a letter that's just a letter with no number in front of it, it really means that there's a 1 in front of that. So now if I wanted to get a by itself, because I can't even leave a negative sign with the a, I have to go through and get that negative 1 away from a. So I'm going to divide by negative 1, cancels out, divide by negative 1. These two become a positive, so I just found out that a equals positive 24. Okay, key thing to remember, you cannot leave it as a negative variable. You must get rid of the negative sign off of that letter. Okay, so here I've got working with the decimal. So here, I would say if you're working with a decimal, then you could go ahead and use a calculator. I'm gonna go ahead and do this longhand. So I wanna get n by itself. If you don't like how it looks, you could rewrite it. It would look like this. Negative 1.5 n equals 3. Okay, that's where you have to decide as a student what you prefer. So now if I look at this, I need to get the negative 1.5 away from the n. So I'm going to divide by negative 1.5. Divide by negative 1.5. Okay, so you could use a calculator to finish this out. I'm going to go ahead and work the division longhand. So I've got 3 divided by negative 1.5. When we divide, we move over so that we have a whole number in the front. So now it's 15. Divided into decimals here, so I have to add a 0, 30. 15 would go into 30 twice. Oops, that's a bad 2. Twice. And I have a negative sign, so our answer is n equals negative 2. Okay, so I'm going to write one up here for you guys to try. Okay, so go ahead and try. Let's do negative 45 n equals 450. Okay, so here I need you, as you're working through it, to show your steps and then solve for your final answer. So you can go ahead and pause your video, work through this problem, and then start the video back up to check your answer. You should have gotten n equals negative 10 on this problem. Okay, so that's working with whole numbers and decimals.